Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming to the Digital Adoption Live Roundtable. We are super excited to have you here. We are going to get started with some introductions. I just want you to write in the chat your name, your title, and the industry that you're working in so that we can start connecting with one another. The topic for today was actually one that was requested by some of you, and it was about how to steer your users towards good habits and steer them away from the bad ones. And so we're hoping that we'll have this great discussion where we're going to talk about this and share different strategies with one another that have worked or maybe not worked. And so we can ask each other questions on the topic and so forth. But first, I am going to turn the time over to Amanda, who's co-hosting with me.
Thank you, Tara. Hi, everyone. So sorry for the difficulties. Quick 5-minute topic here, and it's just kind of to get our brains wrapped around what are good behaviors, what are bad behaviors, and something that I really struggled with at my company that I was at long ago was trying to get people to use the right tools and the right products. We had a lot of shadow IT because it was a company of 70,000 plus employees. And so if someone wanted to use a tool, they would just Google it and say, what do I use for this? And so then they would just start using it before it had ever even been vetted by the company, no investigation, no nothing, no approvals. And when GDPR came about and they got really strict about where information could be stored, how it can be used and things like that, we decided to really try to lock down, and try to minimize shadow IT. So what we did was pretty complex, and we created this based on SharePoint site called Tool Finder. And so you could say, what kind of tool are you looking for? Different ways, different tools to use in different ways, like collaboration or just word stuff, like letter writing, stuff like that. So we put together this really complex system where people could go there and put in filters and, narrow it down, and then they would see and be directed to the correct tool based on what was approved. It was a huge process because, there were tens of thousands of tools that were approved for use or maybe just investigated and not approved. So guiding people toward it was a real challenge for us, but it was something that with GDPR in Europe, if you're not using your customers' information correctly, you could get fined. And it was like 3% of their annual gross profit. So it was humongous. And so it was really necessary for us to try to minimize shadow IT. I did put a couple of things together that I wanted to show you that you don't have to put together some humongous solution. What I did was I definitely recommend having maybe a page on SharePoint or something, just showing all of the different tools, if they've been approved, what the status is, things like this. I put together this page in just like 5 minutes, just a little demo. But there's also a way that you can use VisualSP. So right now I'm in SharePoint, so I just have the SharePoint tab, but a couple of them from my old company that we had problems trying to wrangle people away from using were Confluence and Zoom. So like, don't use that. Use SharePoint Online instead. It is not allowed. Zoom was, especially, COVID hit, everybody's using Zoom. It wasn't approved, but it wasn't really restricted. You could use it. So what I did was in VisualSP, I added Confluence and Zoom, and then I changed the tab. So Confluence, not allowed. And now you see, as soon as you go to Confluence, that you can open this up. And then I put just a help item in here. Instead of it, use SharePoint. And then I have a link to the list to this page that has the different software and tools that are approved or not. Then the other one is Zoom. And as unapproved, I have it as yellow. So you can use whatever colors you want, but it's a really great way to get it right in the faces of your users to say, quit using these tools. These are not approved. It is dangerous to use these because either they haven't been vetted or they have been vetted and they're not storing the information correctly. So lots of different ways that you can do it. And And another thing would be like if they go to Confluence or Zoom or one of these other unapproved tools, you could even have a pop-up that says, hey, you're in this place and you shouldn't be, instead go here. So there are lots of really simple ways to get this across to your users. And it's really important because of the data that people are trying to protect during this digital day and age. So just some things to get the ball rolling. It was super simple to put together. If you are a VisualSP customer, let me know if you're interested and I can help you set up something like this. We could put it all into a spreadsheet and bulk upload it into your subscription so that you are actually pointing people to the right places, the right tools, the right products to protect your customers' information. So just a really simple way to do that. So on that note, let's open it up for other ways that people have learned to guide people to using the right behaviors and to get away from those bad habits of just finding whatever you want to use and doing it without getting the right approval. So anybody else have a similar situation like that right now? I'm curious, or ever.
I don't know about a similar situation, but I think we have struggled with having just so many tools that it can be very overwhelming for people, especially if their level of digital fluency is not as high as we would like it to be. I've adopted a bit of a more, I guess, simpler approach, even simpler still. And it's just a document that I put together that I call the Collaboration Tech Guide. And it has just a short intro to each technology. And these are ones that are available. We have a lot of technologies that are not for everybody, but these are ones that are available enterprise-wide. And it's like the five, not the 5 whys, but the who, what, where, when type thing. What is it? What would I use it for? And just some really simple, like one sentence use cases. And then, how do I access it? And where can I find out more? And then linking that to other resources. And then I adapted the me, we, us diagram that Microsoft has and put in our own technologies so that you can see how it fits into the overall piece. What do I use for me personally? What do we use in our teams? And then what do we use enterprise-wide? But I would love to have something that's more interactive.
Right in their face. Yeah. Nudge people politely, or do you annoy them so they don't use something? Yeah, there's like a balance there of
yeah. And then that's just available in the mega menu of our intranet. So
that's awesome.
It's right there. And I point it out when I get our new hires to drink the Kool-Aid. I point it out to them so they get it from day one.
That's awesome. I like that you said that about the me, we, that diagram thing, because I actually did just help a customer set up a few different help items based on what do I use, OneDrive or SharePoint. And it was really to guide them. They did a pop-up one time automatically for every user and, where do I put this? And so it's a really good, explain what it is and why and how you should use it. Yeah, that's a good point. Anybody else?
For us, it's not as much the wrong tool as much as the wrong version of an old tool, just migrations and a bunch of education surrounding just making a smooth transition as we migrate content from one to the other. And so we've played with a variety of visual SPs, whether it's be banners or center of the page or this is coming soon. Our users like to get a lot of advance notice of things that might change. So it's been really helpful.
That's good. Brandon, how big is your organization? How many users? Just out of curiosity.
7,000-ish.
Okay.
7,500, right. I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're about 1/10 of the size that you are.
Okay. Most of our solutions serve somewhere between 10 and 400 people, though. then with a handful of solutions serving everyone. So it's yeah, there's times that we have a very small user base and can do guided walkthroughs of this is going to be changing soon. But yeah, it all varies on the size of the audience.
I'm sorry for hiding off camera for a few minutes. I'm eating lunch, and so
No problem.
you all don't need to see me trying to dribble soup all over the place, you know.
Just glad you can join. That was a challenge in and of itself. So welcome.
It was. I am an adult learning professional, and I contract or consult with groups. And so I'm coming at the digital adoption specifically around how do we get them learning and skilled up, enabled to use the new technology. What Carolyn was saying is a huge one. Are we getting them to the right place? Can we use some toolkits? And what you were showing with some of your pop-ups, I missed the first 20 minutes or so, partially because of technology, and then I got pulled onto a call, so I apologize. So my paradigm is partner closely with IT as well as leadership and users to help them get the learning they need to upskill appropriately and use these fantastic tools that IT is putting in place. So we can put a lot of great learning out there, but the challenge is how do we get them to it? You can send emails, you can do flyers, but we need it to be somewhere in the moment. So I happened to tune in just as you were showing some of the pop-ups, and I'm wondering if we could utilize that or something else. You know, when people go out to SharePoint Online, which is my current employer's big project right now, taking them from on-prem to online, is there a way that we could use some pop-ups like that to point them to the learning? So I didn't catch everybody's introductions to know where, you know, what everybody's point is or references, but I would be interested in hearing anything about that.
I think that's been a very common transition too. So, oh, Darlene, you look like you have some input.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, like in reference to Brandon's thing about moving stuff. I mean, the biggest thing, because I do a lot of migrations, that's what I do a lot of. And one of the things we do, obviously, is just remove their permissions so that they only have read permissions and then put banners, you know, on the old site. And I had not, it's been a while since I've been to one of these VisualSP things, so I had not seen that new thing that you had where on other tools, it's got that banner. That's really pretty cool, because even though it doesn't technically block them, it gets it in their face. So I hadn't seen that, and because otherwise I'm not sure how else you can't really block them other than if you have IT. You know, IT I'm sure can block somehow on sites. In Teams you can, you know, obviously set the apps that are allowed, so that users can't add their own apps, or they can only add the authorized ones. But within SharePoint itself, that's a different story, right? So.
Yeah, that's true. And I know that SharePoint migrations, they take a long time, they take a lot of effort, but as you know, yeah, you have to block them, put them to read only. That's another very common strategy, is just put them read only. They can't do anything with them now, so they have to go to the new site.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Brandon said, banners, definitely good. With VisualSP and what I just showed with the different color tabs, that was just recently made a lot easier within the VisualSP product. So if you can define an application, like I defined Confluence and Zoom just within, it took just a few seconds, and then there's just some kind of code, some CSS to put the color of the tab. But I think it's really, you could make it really in their face. You can make it pulse, you can do pop-ups, you can do buttons at the top that will also pulse. It's funny, I had this conversation with someone the other day about when is it time to do things that are really going to start to annoy your users because they're just not listening any other way. So we do have some customers that have a big pop-up on the screen, you know, when people just aren't listening. So yeah, you have to have a good balance, because you definitely, it can come back to bite you if you do it too much. And then there's management.
I'm curious on that banner. On that banner, are you able to target that to certain security groups as well, because maybe I've seen some organizations where some of my clients where they're like, well, we let this group use Slack, but nobody else can.
Ah, you can do audience targeting also. Yeah. VisualSP doesn't connect right now with a user directory system, but it is something that we've discussed and making that a possibility. And I think that kind of automating and really doing a specific targeting of security roles would be a great thing. You're right. Yeah, that's a really good idea, especially when we're talking about shadow IT and who really needs to see it and needs to be redirected. Yeah. Yeah, we can do audience targeting right now, but it's a pretty manual process. And we would have to probably upload, extract all of the user data, upload it into the VisualSP system, and then do some things like that. But it's possible. Yeah, it is possible. So. Other ideas, other ways, other bad behaviors that you've seen that's just really hard to steer people away from. I'm just curious.
Even if you don't have a solution for it, because maybe someone else does.
Yeah.
I was going to just add on the pop-ups thing. Amanda knows this. I've been using pop-ups a lot lately, but more for short-term things. So we did a migration from on-prem to the cloud, and we went live in mid-April. We've been up for about seven months, something like that. And we've had some, a few other things that have needed to move since then within the cloud. We weren't using VisualSP in on-prem, but we are obviously in the cloud for SharePoint. And so, for example, our safety tool changed, and a lot of people had the old form bookmarked. So we could update the page which linked to the form, but people were still accessing the form. So I made a pop-up that would come up every time somebody opened the form saying, uh-oh, you're on the wrong one. You need to click here to go to the new application. That kind of thing with a link just makes it easier. So then they then can, make sure that they get their shortcut updated and also have the link to the new thing. And so it's a teachable moment. And hopefully also prevented them from going and putting anything in the old tool. And we just did another migration, a small migration within on-prem over the Thanksgiving holiday. So all of those sites that were affected had a little message saying, hey, this site's going to move. Just make sure that you're aware of that. And close all your documents, check everything in, all those kind of things. But that was just up for like 5 days or a week. So I think those are fine. I think you have to be careful not to do too many. If somebody hasn't gone there, you don't want somebody opening it up and they get 20 pop-ups all at once. Might be a little much.
Yeah.
I've also really enjoyed load behavior on that one. We had some people who were working in a site that was about to move, and it's one thing if they need to know it's coming soon, but if they're navigating through a library and it's loading every click, that drives them really crazy. So, but then again, it's maybe just the first time is not enough. So making sure that you're making good use of the load behavior, it's very helpful.
Yeah, it's like a logic puzzle trying to work.
It is.
Especially now you have to put the range in. It's like that having me scratching my head.
Right.
Yeah, you do it the first time, and then the 15th time, and then the 30th time. And if they still don't have it, then 35, then 36, 37, 38. I don't know. It is a puzzle. It is. Caroline, you said something about bookmarks. Is bookmarks in and of itself, is that a bad habit for all of us? Or no? Is there a way we can... Is there a way that we could minimize the use of bookmarks and have all of the information that people need directly at their fingertips without needing bookmarks? Or is that just a necessary evil? What do you think?
I feel that's a little bit like folders. It's like super ingrained into people's DNA. I mean, yeah, you can change it. I just think some of it is, I don't know, I think some of it is almost, I think there is a generational aspect to it. I've been doing more reading about the generational diversity we have in how we communicate, and I think there's a lot of that in training as well. I noticed that with the people that have that are in their 20s, the behaviors that they have and their attitudes towards technology are very, very different from the people that have been here for 35 years and went through the amazing transition of going from paper to digital, the initial one. So their experiences and the way that they relate to technology is different. So I think we kind of have to cater to. We've got 5 generations in our workplace, sort of super diverse workplace. So I think those are some of the challenges that sometimes get overlooked. So it's something I'm hoping to look into more next year.
So my question is, what is an option other than bookmarks?
And that's what I was thinking is, I mean, we have SharePoint pages with links, and we have VisualSP with a panel with all of the resources that they could possibly want. I guess, how do you know what people need to use in their everyday work? And is it something that we can get away from? Yeah, I don't know.
Depends on if you're on-prem or in the cloud. So if you're in the cloud, then you can follow sites, and then it's all in your following. And if you're, in Teams, then you can pin your channels. So that would be the closest equivalent in that scenario. And in that online scenario, that's much better because then that kind of follows with you, without having to set up, or log into browser profiles on every new machine. It follows you when you log into 365.
Yeah, so that's true.
I don't know if it's an option now, but I'm also wondering if at some point, if things like role-based personalization can also play a role. And so sort of a variation on audience targeting, but, provide people with certain things just based on either what part of the organization they're in or what function they play and so on. We're not set up right now to be able to do something like that, but I think something like that could be pretty useful.
It's a really good point. Yes, I agree. Yeah, role-based. What are they going to need? Yeah. I know. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I think role-based is in many cases already being very effective when people are in a very specific targeted role. Like think call centers who they only take calls for X customers and therefore they need these sets of tools. But as soon as you get to a broader role or someone who does multiple roles, or heaven forbid, someone like me who works with all departments on lots of projects, that whole role-based thing goes out the window because you just have a bazillion things to keep track of. And I'm like, wow, if there was something other than bookmarks, I would go for that. But right now, bookmarks are the only way I can keep up with all the projects. That's why I'm like, what other options are there?
Yep. Anyone else?
As a relative newcomer to the online, I found following sites really useful. And I've watched the light bulb go on with other people. You say, you basically got your own curated list of shortcuts, only they'll magically update if needed. But obviously that's at the site level. It's not, you can't get deeper than the site level for that. So to my knowledge anyway.
And then you're dependent upon other people deciding the logic where they store things and where it gets published. So again, other challenges, but boy, I'm with you. If we could find a way to improve that, that would be awesome.
Help. I wonder if clarity could even help us too. The more we learn about how to use clarity to identify those popular areas that people are going to, maybe we can be smarter about how we build out our reference materials too. Because you can get all of that information. Clarity, oh my gosh, I don't know if any of you are using it yet to help you with that. There's so much information that sometimes it could be overwhelming, but it's there. And if we just care to look, we can see what pages people are going to and what people are clicking on and what people are having trouble with. And Hmm.
Do you know
That's
if
so much
Clarity
data.
has the data in terms of where they came from? Thinking about all the redirects that we have, like where did they, if we can go to where they're supposed to be and trace them back to how did they get here?
It's a really good question.
I like that.
Back in 1997, I know that the browser had a "Where did you come from?" tag, but then I think they got rid of
Yes.
it because of security issues. But I don't know. I haven't looked
That's-
for it since then.
Yeah.
I'm looking here. I'm going to copy in the chat. There's this option that says like referring site. If that might be it, I don't know.
Hmm.
And that's from Clarity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's from Clarity.
So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a possibility, just because
Right.
that can do almost anything. That's a really
I
good
know.
find, Tara.
Interesting data.
Yeah. Yep. I know we're trying to use it more and more with our customers, but man, there's just a lot to go through. So, but once you understand, I guess, what's possible, then you just start thinking, oh, I could figure that out. I could use it for that and have different challenges that you just do one by one, start looking at them like that. But interesting. All right. What are some other behaviors that people can think of that for some reason just you haven't been able to nip them in the bud?
Nested folders.
Oh, yeah. Nested folders and then subsites upon subsites upon subsites. I've seen that be a challenge too.
Subsites.
Can you share a little more, Caroline, about the nested folders issue?
We have a lot of data still on network file shares, some of which are, how can I put this, carry some ancient history within them of many, many years. And we are embarking on a project to move a lot of that into SharePoint Online. And I am imploring people not just to wholesale grab everything with a folder structure that's 8 levels deep and dump it into a SharePoint library, because the experience will not be a good one.
Yeah.
I think trying to get people to understand there are some other ways of being able to slice and dice your data and understand the concepts of tagging and metadata and views. You kind of have to unhook 20, 30 years worth of your brain working in that way to be able to understand it in a different way. It goes back to my thing with the generational differences. I also think and hope that AI will help with some of that, because if you've got 10,000 documents, you can't possibly go in and manually tag all of those. So I think we got to think practically, and we got to think, you can't have somebody, as I said, go manually tag 10,000 documents.
Right.
But I also think there's a better way than doing folder levels 8 deep. I'm hoping AI is going to be my silver bullet.
No kidding.
I think the challenge there, coming from the adult learning side of that, how do we get people from here to there on that learning space, is that we have touted for years, or IT or SharePoint has touted for years, that search is the answer to getting rid of all of those nested folders and or subsites, whichever, whether you're going vertical or horizontal, the same thing applies. Search is not the answer if it's not appropriately tagged, and we can't tag it manually. And beyond that, search is not the right answer if you don't know what to search for. So like the simplest example I can give you recently was somebody who was very deep in Excel was shocked when I showed them a pivot table. And I was floored that the guy didn't know about pivot tables, but he didn't know they existed, and he didn't know what the word would have been to go search for it to get information on it. He could have very easily taught himself pivot tables, but he didn't know the word. And or you have the situation of, we all have a bazillion things hitting our brains at the same time throughout the day. Can you come up with that word when you need it, or can you remember it? So you're battling. I hear Carolyn saying generational, and I'm going to push back on that a little bit. it's not so much generational. There is that element, but it's oversimplified if we stick with that. Within every generation are people who don't pull, what was the name of that musician? What was the name of that band? What was the name of that TV show? Those are the same people we're searching is going to be a challenge.
Totally.
And so I want to broaden the thought process beyond just generational. Within every generation, we have that spectrum. And how can we get past if people don't know what to search for, how to search for it, how can we get consistent tagging so we have a list of tags we can choose from rather than trying to, I think all of that plays in.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I.e., if we can identify the obstacles, then we're in a better position to try to solve for them to move people forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I really do think you're right, though, with AI being, I think it's really going to help that way because it's built to understand what you're trying to look for, even if you don't know the exact words. But gosh, another layer to this too is if you search and you don't know which ones are outdated. How do you start putting expiration dates or making sure that the outdated things are actually archived or boy, yeah, there's a lot that goes into this. The subfolders and the trying to find what you need. Yeah.
I heard a quote, which I think was Satya Nadella in his keynote speech at Ignite just a few weeks ago, which is something like what Lean did for manufacturing, AI is set to do for knowledge workers. So
yeah,
I don't think we're there yet. But
not yet. This is where
it's moving fast.
Yep. This is where I'm gonna do a little bit of a plug-in for VisualSP. We are coming up. We're gonna be releasing some really cool AI things over the next few months. Really cool. So there you go. That's the tease. But it is really going to help, and it is going to be able to do a lot more than we even really think of right now as the role of AI in other areas that we use it right now. So yeah, it's going to be pretty cool, but it will definitely help people find what they need to find without knowing what they need to find.
Yeah, but you will have that. You do have that issue if you've got crummy data, right? You've got bad data out there. Yeah, AI is going to pull the stuff, and users aren't going to be able to differentiate. So I think that Amanda, when you said about retention, that's really key, and not having duplication. It's really hard because some things fit into the world of structured and tagging, and some things are more unstructured. And it's the unstructured stuff that's the trickier.
Yes.
To control that.
Yep, definitely.
You need solid master data management to go alongside your AI and your tagging and digitally fluent users. And what else are we going to put on our Christmas list?
Yes. Yeah. I know my old company was trying, when I left, they were trying to implement something that would try to automate the tagging of all of that data because it's just impossible, like you said, Caroline. And I don't even know if they ever made it there. It was hard to even wrap your brain around with that much data, how that could be done and how many rules you have to apply to it. And just setting it up just seemed like one hurdle after another. So yeah, huge challenge. All right. Any other behaviors that you can think of? I have a list of some, but
I would like very much to, when somebody goes into a tool, whether it's SharePoint or any other tool, I would love very much to be able to direct them to the appropriate learning on site, or not on site, for our organization that we're working with. As opposed to, I'm going to go out and Google it and wade through 20,000 YouTube videos that may or may not have the right information, may or may not apply to my company. So if we could, with a tool, somehow when they go into Teams, remind them, here's learning for you, or here's where you go to find out about this new tool, or even have tips pop up every third time they jump into the software, or every fifth time, not every time, every 10th time, whatever the sequencing is. But if we could embed some 30-second quick tips and links to other learning, even when they launch it or at specific spots within the software. I'm working right now on proprietary software for my company, and it would just be really wonderful to be able to, at certain spots in that software, direct them to the 3-minute video that someone has already created on that.
Yep.
And since it's proprietary, they can't go out and Google anyway.
Right. Yeah, that's something VisualSP is trying to solve. It sounds like you
So is that something that there might be opportunity with this particular tool? I'm not familiar with your tool.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. I mean, it's key. I think that's exactly what it's trying to do, is give people exactly what they need, where they need it, and make sure that it's something that has been vetted by your company. So they're getting the right processes and the right guidance based on your company itself. Yeah. Amy, do you mind me asking what company you're with?
I'm with a life insurance company, and since I'm a contractor, I'm kind of, just protecting their private information.
Yeah.
I'm currently working with a life insurance company.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I think what's important too about VisualSP is that you're getting that information in that context, so that you're not getting distracted searching on other sites and finding all that other information. Yeah. We are close to wrapping up now. One of the things we wanted to do before we closed is we wanted to get some possible future topics that you would like us to cover in these roundtables. So are there some topics on your mind where you'd want to hear what other people are doing and ask some questions?
So I work at a production and warehouse facility, so I would love to see how users are using VisualSP on an ERP. So in the future, we're going to use D365 F&O or supply chain management, whatever the new name is. They come out every other day. But right now, but right now, we're using it for the sales team for that D365 side. And then I also have a separate warehouse management tool. But the challenge for me is, we have these actions that are documented in our ERP or CRM, but there's also a physical aspect to it. So for example, I work a lot with warehouse, and it's having more than just scanning and entering in something, but it's also actually the pick, pack, and ship of an item. So I not only have the computer activity, but I also have the physical activity. So I'm using VisualSP as part of our SOPs that combine what you're supposed to do in real life and then how you're supposed to document it. So those that are similar in that area, I'd love to hear from them too. And I saw it, Tara, that in your screen capture, your traffic, it said Contoso. So I thought maybe someone was using like the D365 ERP, but maybe that was just taken out of something else. But when I see Contoso, it's like, oh, who's practicing with that ERP? So.
Yeah, I think that is our tester site when we're doing some things. So, but it's funny. Right now, I'm writing an article on digital transformation and manufacturing. So, a lot of these things are really helpful to hear from you, and I'll be looking into some answers.
Yeah, I can't wait to read the articles. I'll be the first one. Please send it straight to me. Yeah.
Sure thing. Yeah. Are there other topics that you'd be interested in covering?
I feel like those users who can't think of the terms they can't think of at the moment, right? So what do I not know how to do? Is a tricky question.
Well, feel free to send them to me directly. Email any ideas that you have for future ones. I'm guessing we'll probably be scheduling the next one somewhere in around the February timeframe, and we're gonna get this live webinar thing down, the tool.
If you could figure out how to get the workaholics to not be working on weekends, and then the people who kick off early to stay a little bit longer, that would be fantastic. But
There we go.
you know,
We need
shy
that
of a weekend
balance.
only pop-ups that say, hey, go enjoy the outdoors.
Right.
I haven't figured that one out.
Funny.
I'd be in trouble on that one.
Yep. Don't worry, you
That's
can
when
figure
I
out how to change the
focus. I
load
focus
behavior.
late at night.
Right.
Yeah.
Same. Yep. Well, thank you very much for joining. So sorry about the technical difficulties, and hopefully we'll have them all resolved for the next one. We'll do lots of dry runs, but yeah, thank you for joining, and reach out to me if you, and Amy, if you want to see a little short demo or something, feel free to email me and we'll set up a time where, you know, it's where I can just show you what it is, because it sounds like it might be exactly what you need, but
Maybe. Thank you very much.
Sure. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the day, and have great
Bye.
holidays if I don't talk to you.
Yeah.
Thanks.